be teaching your CPR workshop.
Okay, welcome. My name's Kim, and I am a nurse, and I do have 5 kids. 3 of them are hard of hearing. That was my middle daughter. Her name was Amanda, so she was trying to help me and make sure my technology was working. She just graduated from the Maryland School for the Deaf. And so I have been trying to learn sign because she prefers ASL to English, and her hearing, all my kids have congenital hearing loss, the three of the 5, and 2 of them, excuse me, the 2 older ones with hearing loss, it's been progressively worse. They are both deaf in their left ear now, and maybe 50–60% deaf in their right ear. So we're trying to, she's fluent in ASL, but we're trying to quickly learn it, since she can do both now, but we will have to be conversing in ASL only soon. So welcome, and I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you're interested in learning about CPR. So we are going to get started. I'm going to share my screen, and then we will make sure that everything is still working, and then I can show you the presentation. So I'm just pulling up my screen now. And I have our interpreter and myself pinned on the screen. So I want to know if you can see that. Otherwise, I'll switch to another view.
I can see it.
Yes?
Yeah, it's good. We're good to go.
Okay. All right, so this is being presented by the Save a Life initiative, which is funded here through the DISC Foundation. That's the name on the screen. And like I said, my name is Kim. I live in Maryland, right outside Washington, DC, and I do all the CPR webinars for the DISC Foundation. They are free to everyone. So I do regular webinars throughout the week on different topics, and then organizations like yourself can also request their own personal webinar, and I work with countries all around the world. So it's been great. The sole purpose of the foundation is to help others to save lives by learning CPR. So these are a list of the common fears about why you wouldn't do CPR if you saw somebody collapse. Probably the most common one is being unsure of what to do. So I'm hoping today you're going to get more comfortable with the steps that we follow, they're the same for everybody all the time. And won't be afraid to check someone if they collapse. Another fear people have is disease, of course, and especially now with COVID-19. We used to teach mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, and we don't do that anymore. That was decades ago. So now we're suggesting do chest compressions, but if you don't have a CPR mask, don't do breaths for somebody. Don't put your mouth on somebody else's mouth. You can choose to do that if that's your family or loved one. But when you see a stranger that falls over and they need CPR, if you don't have a mask, you can just do chest compressions. That is definitely better than nothing and will help them. So another fear people have is liability, especially in America. Will I get sued? What if I do something wrong? What if I hurt them? Those kind of all go together. But in America and actually many other countries, we have a law called the Good Samaritan Law that protects us. So whether you have learned CPR or not, if you attempt to help someone that looks like they need help medically, you would not be held liable for any damage. And we have to remember, if this person is in cardiac arrest, they are not breathing, their heart is not working, they are basically dead. But what we can do with CPR is do some things to help keep the blood and oxygen going so that when they get to the hospital, we can do life support with machines and there's a chance they can live. So if you're afraid you're going to hurt or kill them, they are dead. Nothing else can happen. You can't hurt them any further than that.
Good morning. Thank you for calling Bridges for the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. This is Christy.
Okay. What was I saying? Okay, so the one thing that people hear though about CPR is breaking a rib. You can break someone's rib. It can be crunchy when you are pushing on their heart. But that's normal. It definitely can be scary. And that happens to our first responders all the time too. They can break a rib on someone. But you have to imagine too, if you were in cardiac arrest, would you rather be dead or be alive with a broken rib? So we try to just ignore that and move on, and that will heal later if they survive. So for the scene, that's something that people forget a lot to check, but we don't want you to be in danger when you are going to help someone. So if you're inside, you need to look around and see what happened. Why did they collapse? Did they fall off a ladder? Did they get shot? Did they just grab their heart and fall down? We need to make sure there's no more violence or danger from the situation before we help them. And then again, if you're outside, I will stop at a car accident if I see it. We also have to look around and make sure, is it a bad storm? Is a tree going to fall on us? Is it are you in the middle of the road with traffic? So we have to always be looking around to make sure that we are safe and If we need to, we will move the victim out of that situation before we start CPR. So we're going to look at this adult chain of survival. So this is the order from left to right of how we help a person that has collapsed. And the first circle is activating the emergency response system. So we're going to call 911 here in the United States, and you can call anytime you think someone is hurt, but especially if we see someone collapsed and we don't know if they're breathing or not, we're going to call 911. Next, we do need to check and see if they are responsive or breathing. If they are, we can wait with them for help and try to ask people what happened. But if they are not breathing, we need to start CPR. The next thing we're going to try is defibrillate. So if there is an AED around, we are going to get it or have someone get it and bring it to us and turn it on and use the pads. So we will be covering those items today. I'm going to show you how that all works. The next 3 steps are for our healthcare providers, and that's the ambulance, the paramedic, the emergency room, and then people do have a long recovery, months long, after having a cardiac arrest. Oops, I'm gonna pause here and show a video. So give me 1 second to get that ready. All right, and same thing, I want to make sure that we can see the video and the interpreter at the same time. No, I didn't want to do that. Wait. So, okay. No, that probably won't work. You can't see the interpreter now. No, okay. Okay.
Yes. Yes.
You can?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay, good. Okay. I can. I wanted to make sure everyone else can see.
Can you believe that catch in the game last night? It was amazing. You know, I thought it was over. I was ready to turn the TV off and go to bed. Yeah. Well, they got lucky. They had no business winning that game. Look, a win is a win. Yeah, right. Oh, check him out. That guy looks like he was out on the field. Seriously, though, you think he's okay? I would assume so since he's out and about, but how can you tell? Hello? I gotta get to the office. Yeah, me too. Yeah. Okay. We'll get those documents over to your office later today, then we can discuss where to go from there. Sound good?
Help! Help! Dad, are you okay? Help! Dad, someone help me, Dad, please.
Sir, are you okay? Sir, are you okay? Call 911. Get an AED and first aid kit right away.
Yeah, we have this at the store. Dad!
It's okay. He's calling 911. Did your father complain about anything before he collapsed? Or
He was complaining about not feeling it, but he always complains, and then he just collapsed out of nowhere.
do you know if he's allergic to anything?
Allergies. Aspirin. He's allergic to aspirin.
Does he take any medication? Or
I don't think so.
Okay, so I want to point out a few key points in this video, and then we're going to go through our list. So this is recognizing something's wrong. Somebody's laying down on the sidewalk and it's a nice day outside. That's not normal. So that's our clue, like, hey, something's wrong, you know, pretty obvious. But you see, there could be 100 people walking by. And if everyone keeps walking by and this person needs CPR and no one stops to help them, then he will die. So it's important that one of us is comfortable saying something is wrong. We need to go check and see if we can help. And so you see this man is the one running that decides to help, and then people are just walking by, and that's very normal. That's what happens. So this is our next step. We tap hard on the shoulders and say, hey, are you okay? Now, if you don't use your voice, that's fine. You can just tap really hard. If they move around at all, sometimes they open their eyes a little bit. We just have to look and see what reaction there is. If there's any type of reaction, then they're responsive. If there's not, they're not responsive. So it's that easy. It's yes or no, but we have to decide. They could be asleep, drunk, you know, have a problem with a medical condition, diabetes, anything, okay? So we need to see if they're responsive, then that means they're breathing and their heart is beating. So in this situation, he moved around a little bit and he moaned and he opened his eyes. So he was responsive. So here the man is doing the next step, which is just telling someone, you call 911, okay? So again, if you're not using your voice, you can still point and, sorry, I'm coughing today. You know, you can do your numbers and say 911 and point at someone. And if you, you know, are saying, like, trying to show that you're helping, that will be fine. So he picked, I think, the man behind him and to call 911 so that he could keep helping. And then he told this girl with the apron on to go get the first aid kit and the AED. She, with wearing an apron, looks like she just walked out of a store or a cafe. And so she would have access to that quickly. So he's making good, quick decisions. Instead of trying to pick somebody else who's just walking by, they could be on a lunch break and be far away from work, you know, where a first aid kit is. And then he just continues to stay with this person and asks more questions to try to help the young girl who's afraid. And he'll just stay until the ambulance comes. So that was a situation if they are responsive and we don't need to do CPR. So now we're going to look at CPR. And it stands for cardiopulmonary resuscitation. So it's heart, lung, recover. So we are combining that rescue breathing with the chest compressions, and we're supporting the heart and lung when they are not working. So we are literally providing oxygen to the brain until, like I said before, help arrives, like the ambulance, and we can get life support with machines. So we do press on that center of the chest. We're going to see that video next. And we're pushing on bone and the heart is under it. And so we're literally squeezing that heart. Okay, the heart is not working when we need to do CPR. So when we push on it, we're squeezing it and we are pushing that blood out to the arms and legs, which is not that important, but where we want it to go is to the brain. So it will circulate around the whole body and then come back to the heart. It will do what it's supposed to do if we are doing the pumping for it. And people often think that we have to put that oxygen into the person from our own mouth. But if you think about it, we already have oxygen in our blood. It's on the hemoglobin, and that last breath that that person took before they collapsed, they already have oxygen in their blood. So we're going to just circulate that oxygen around. And that's why it's okay if you don't have a mask, because we don't want to get any diseases from anyone, to just do chest compressions. There's already oxygen in the blood and we're going to just circulate it around. If we do breaths and we have a mask, we're only putting a little bit more of oxygen. It's not very much. So that's why, again, it's okay to skip that part. And then once an ambulance comes, they will have an oxygen tank and they will be able to hook that up. So brain damage does start in 4 to 6 minutes. So that's why we want to be very quick. We can't sit around and wait for an ambulance. An ambulance in our area where I live might be 3 or 4 minutes. If you live, I live near a city. If you live farther out in a country or have volunteer ambulance members that have to leave from their home, 5 and 6 minutes, that can definitely happen. So we can't just sit and wait for the ambulance to come. It could be too late. Brain damage is almost certain after 10 minutes. So we want you to check and see if they are unconscious and breathing and start CPR within 10 seconds. And just keep doing compressions until the ambulance comes. All right, we're going to watch the video first and then go through these steps.
When a person is in cardiac arrest.
Hold on, wrong video. There we go. CPR. Okay.
Hey, are you okay?
After confirming that someone is unresponsive and not breathing or only gasping, assume cardiac arrest and begin CPR.
He's unresponsive.
Ensure the person is on his back on a firm, flat surface such as the ground. Next, kneel beside him and place the heel of one hand in the center of his chest, with your other hand on top. Interlace your fingers and make sure they are up off the chest. Position your body so that your shoulders are directly over your hands. With this technique, you can use your body weight to help compress the chest. Now, give 30 chest compressions. Keeping your arms straight, push down at least 2 inches, then let the chest return to its normal position. Continue to push hard and fast, giving compressions at a rate of between 100 and 120 compressions per minute. For a child, push down about 2 inches. And for a smaller child, you may only need to perform chest compressions with one hand. Next, give 2 rescue breaths. First, place a breathing barrier over the person's nose and mouth. Then, open the airway by putting one hand on the forehead and 2 fingers on the bony part of the chin and tilting the head back to a past neutral position. For a child, you'll only need to tilt the head to a slightly past neutral position. Pinch the nose shut, take a normal breath, and make a complete seal over the person's mouth with your mouth. Blow for about 1 second while looking to see that the chest rises. Take another breath, make a seal, and give a second rescue breath.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4.
Continue giving sets of 30 chest compressions and 2 rescue breaths until you notice an obvious sign of life. An AED is ready to use and no other trained responders are available. You have performed 5 sets of CPR and another trained responder is available to switch.
1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6.
You have performed 5 sets of CPR on a child. You are alone and need to call 911. EMS personnel take over. You are alone and too tired to continue. Or the scene becomes unsafe.
1 and 2
At the
and 3
AED
and
and for
4
safety.
Okay, so going back to the list now, and we can see if you remember anything that you saw these steps in the video. So first, like I said, we have to make sure that we are safe and that we don't become a victim in this scene. So you're going to look around and try to figure out what happened in 3 to 5 seconds, just very quick. Then we're going up to the victim if it's safe, and then tapping really hard on the shoulders. And if you're going to use your voice, you can yell as loud as you can, "Hey, are you okay?" If you don't know if they are hearing or not. Of course, if you know that they are deaf, you wouldn't have to say that. You can just, we're trying to cause a little bit of discomfort or pain to see if we can wake them up a little bit. But if there's nothing, no response, we're going to tell someone to call 911 or text 911 if you have that in your area. And then you can also tell someone to get an AED. Okay, you can, sign that, and hopefully people would know what that was. So for adults, the AED is very important, and we're going to cover the AED next because adults are very likely to have a heart attack or a heart problem as they get older, and the AED is very helpful in that situation. So we've decided they are unconscious, they are not responding, and now we need to see if they are breathing. There's no one particular way to do this. We just kind of get down close and look and see, do they look like they're sleeping? Are they, can you see their mouth moving? Is their chest moving? Is their stomach moving? Are they snoring? You can feel, you can put your hand out for air in front of the nose or the mouth. But yeah, we just look and see, do they look like they're sleeping? If you're looking at them for 5 to 10 seconds, you can tell. Most of us have never looked at a dead body before. So it is quite shocking when you look at someone and say, they don't look like they're breathing. You doubt yourself, but it is easy to tell. We're so used to seeing people when they're asleep that they either look like they're asleep or you're looking at them and you're like, I don't see any breathing. So trust yourself. If you have looked for 5 to 10 seconds and you don't see anything, they're not breathing. And we just need to start CPR. This is where people really doubt themselves. And I just want to reassure you, you know what you're looking at. So when we start CPR, we always start with the chest compressions. And like I said, if you don't have a mask or a barrier like they had in the video, you're just gonna keep doing chest compressions until your ambulance shows up. If you have a mask or breathing barrier, you can alternate with this 30 chest compressions, 2 rescue breaths, and go back and forth. And if you have 2 people, it's even better to have one person stay and do the chest compressions and then the other person do the breathing with the mask. But we just keep doing CPR until one of these things happened. They mentioned also in the video, either the AED shows up, you have to stop and turn it on and put the pads on, or help arrives, ambulance, or a doctor suddenly shows up. Excuse me. I don't know why I'm coughing today. Or you see signs of life. So it's not like the movies where somebody just sits up and starts talking to you. For signs of life, we have to actually pause and look at them again. Do you see movement of the body? Are the eyes opening? Do you see that breathing where they look like they're sleeping? But more commonly, we will see a seizure or vomiting. If something happens with the scene, I've helped at car accidents and everything's fine for 10 minutes, and then a telephone pole that was hit starts falling down. So you have to, keep looking up every once in a while and see what is going on, or have someone else be in charge of that that's just standing and watching. Because then we have to be like, oh, we better move before this pole falls on us. If you are alone and you have done CPR for 20 minutes, your cell phone is not working, you can't get 911, your battery is dead, you're out on a hike in the woods, you don't have cell service, like all kinds of things, and there's no one else around, it is appropriate to stop or take a break after about 20 minutes of CPR. You might at that point, if you know you could get somewhere and run, maybe go get some help, you can do that, but that's a hard decision. But 20 minutes is the rule that we use. So I mentioned the hands-only CPR, which is just chest compressions if you don't have a mask. And if you can only remember one thing from today, this is what we want you to remember. We're going to check someone and see if they're breathing. And if they need CPR and you don't have any equipment with you, you just put your hands on their chest, lean on it very hard, and just keep doing chest compressions until help arrives. If you can call 911, especially if you have your relay system with the video and interpreter, they can instruct you and you can follow along too. They can give you directions, they can count for you. So that's very helpful in an emergency, so that you don't feel alone in that situation. So here are some of the facts. We just put that one hand on top of the other and lace the fingers. It doesn't matter which hand is on top of the other, and very straight arms. And it's best if the person is on the ground and we're kneeling next to them. And that way you're using your shoulders and you're just putting your whole weight on them with your arms straight, okay? So it's kind of like a lever, you know, we're using our body and pushing with our shoulders and keeping the arms straight. So we do compressions at the rate of 100 to 120 a minute, which is pretty fast. Like you saw in the video, it's kind of this rate. Okay. This part on the depth, we don't get out a ruler. This is saying if I'm looking at the person from the side and they're laying down, we're not going to go halfway down their body. Pushing a little bit less is 1/3 of the way down. And if you look at the numbers, it just means, you know, small babies, we're only pushing a little bit, children a little bit more, or one hand, teenagers and adults, 2 hands, and we're using our whole body to push on them. So you're just thinking about how big the person is, and you're pushing more and harder the bigger that they are. Allow for complete chest recoil means when I push down, I don't stay down at the bottom and just kind of push a little bit. I have to go down and back up the whole way, so that we're thinking of that heart, and we're trying to squeeze the blood out of it and let the blood come back into it. So that's what we're thinking of when we're doing it. The person does need to be on a firm, flat surface. So if somebody does collapse in bed, on a chair, they're in a car accident, we do have to pull them down flat onto their back on the ground. CPR does not work if they're standing up or sitting up or anything like that. Okay, we saw in the video this method of opening the airway. This is another thing that people forget all the time, that when you'll see first responders come to a scene, that's the first thing they're going to do is pull that head. We push on the forehead and we use the chin or the jaw and just get all of this open. This is our trachea where we're breathing. And so this has to be straight, okay? I also work as a medic at sports events, and I've had people fall after getting hit in the head, and sometimes they're not breathing, but the first thing we do is open that airway, and then they're breathing again. Okay, so this can be a really quick, easy fix for somebody that has collapsed. So we try to remember to do that. The jaw thrust is for someone that we think has a head, neck, or spinal injury. So that means somebody fell off a ladder, bad car accident, you know, anybody that fell from a height or was in a high collision trauma, we're not gonna move their head and neck. And even if we have to take them out of the car, we're gonna try to like hold their neck completely still and use those cervical collars if we have it from the ambulance. So that means if you come across someone and you look and you're like, oh, they just fell off the roof, they were fixing their roof, we're not gonna open their airway like that. In that case, we need to keep them exactly in that same position and just try to open their mouth with their jaw if you're doing the rescue breaths. If you're not, we just are not going to touch them, and we'll do chest compressions. So I can show you in the video. Where is it? Oh, I don't know where my, oh, here it is. I lost it. In the video, they had this plastic, basically. You can order these online. It's nothing special. It's plastic, but the nice thing is it has this little filter, and this lets air go through that you're blowing, but it won't come back. So I can put this on a person that's not breathing. And then when I put my mouth on it and breathe on them, I'm not going to get any germs back. So these are very cheap, and this is something easy to keep in a first aid kit. It folds up and comes just in a little keychain pouch. Very easy. So then the next thing, the one that I keep, because I'm a nurse, but anyone also can buy these online, and it comes in a little kit. This is a Red Cross one, is my mask. Okay, so this looks like this. I breathe through here. I put this, they have almost like a point and then a round part. So the point goes on the victim's nose. Okay. So you probably saw that in the video. And then I'm blowing in here, and the same thing, there's a filter in this that I can breathe through, but the air does not come back into my mouth. Anything that is coming out of their body just goes out to the side. So I'm not going to get any of their germs. And these come in the little pouch too. And I keep that in my first aid kit, and I keep one in my car. This is what you see lifeguards walking around with this on at the pool. This is very easy to just pull out and put on someone that needs rescue breathing, and then I breathe into there. Very easy to use. So those are the two things that I recommend. Anyone can buy them. You can just order, breathing mask, rescue mask, CPR mask, anything, if you want to Google it and find one if you want to keep one around. So if I am doing breaths, I do 2 breaths. Each is 1 second, so it's kind of slow. So I'm breathing, waiting, breathing, waiting. So each time, if I'm breathing, I'm going to look at their chest and see if air is moving. It will get bigger. If it doesn't the first time, then I kind of reposition their neck. I fix the mask, make sure it's tight, and then I try it again. After I do 2, if it doesn't work, we don't keep trying it. We just go back to chest compressions. We could try it again after 30, but this person could have an obstruction. They could be choking. Their tongue, they could be swollen, anaphylaxis. There are many things that could go wrong. And if you're not used to doing it every day, it can be a little bit hard to do it correctly. So that's why we just say, even if you have a mask and you try it, it doesn't work, just do chest compressions. Anyone can do chest compressions. So we're going to look at the AED next. There's all different types. You should have seen one by now, and I've seen them in churches and gyms and at the mall and community buildings. And me being a nurse, now when I walk in a building, I'm kind of looking around like, where's the AED? In case I need to get it. So it does stand for Automated External Defibrillator. And that means it's automatic. It does everything on its own. Externals talking about it's on the outside of the body. And this is as opposed to somebody can have an internal defibrillator, and you might know someone that has one. My dad has one. So some of our older people, if they have a cardiac condition and they need to get a pacemaker, we can also get one that has a defibrillator in it. You can get a pacemaker with one or without one. And that means that when their heart either goes into a fatal rhythm or is too low, beating too low, it will shock them inside. And you'll see them kind of flop like a fish and fall on the floor. And that means they were just shocked. And this has happened to my dad, but before we had these 100 years ago, that person would have just died, So this is something that will extend somebody's life. They're very easy to use. You turn it on and you follow the directions. Now, I want to show you, I have the test one. There's always, let's see if I can, let me do it in front of me. There's always a big green button or power button that says turn it on.
This is a training device only. No shock
And
will be delivered.
let me turn that off for a second. On the side, there we go, there's volume. Okay, so if you have any hearing, you can try to turn it up. Let's see here. Oh, okay. And to see if you can hear it. I haven't worked with a deaf group yet with these, so I'm not sure. I know we have, the smoke alarms and fire alarms that flash. So I'm not sure if there is a visual AED yet. I haven't worked with that yet. So if you have any hearing, you want to make sure that you turn up the volume because it is only using voice on this. Or if you have somebody that you can get to follow along. But it really is easy. You can still turn it on yourself. It will start talking. And then all you have to do is put the pads on, and they have pictures where there's a spot. That one's not a great picture here, where, this one's a little baby and it shows you exactly on the person. And all you do, it's a sticker, you just peel it off and put it, there's 2 pads. So it's either this size for little children, babies, or the regular size is for older children, teenagers, and adults. So mostly everybody gets this. It's pretty rare for our younger babies to have, they're not going to have a heart attack. So they don't really use AED too much. So you can see there, the pediatric is for under age 8 and under 55 pounds. So that's like very small, maybe age, like our preschoolers. Now from there, it does analyze, but then it will tell you whether to shock or not. So if you can't hear that, you do need to find a way to do that. And that's something I can look up and email, or if you guys know, you can let me know if there's a way to do that, because I haven't worked on that yet. So we're going to look at the AED video that shows you what happens in that situation.
For someone in cardiac arrest, calling 911 or the designated emergency number, starting CPR immediately, and using an AED as soon as possible gives the person the best chance for survival. Cardiac arrest can occur when the electrical impulses that cause the heart to contract rhythmically become abnormal, disorganized, and chaotic. The heart will stop beating or beat too ineffectively to circulate blood to the brain and other vital organs. 2 abnormal heart rhythms in particular, ventricular fibrillation and ventricular tachycardia, can often be corrected by defibrillation, the electrical shock delivered by an AED. When effective, the shock disrupts the abnormal electrical activity long enough to allow the heart to spontaneously develop an effective rhythm on its own. An AED is simple to use. The device will guide you every step of the way. AEDs can be used on people of all ages and can also be used on pregnant women. All you need to do is turn the device on and follow the voice and visual prompts. Remember, start CPR immediately and use an AED as soon as possible. For each minute that CPR and AED use are delayed, the person's chance of survival is reduced by about 10%.
Okay, for choking, we're just going to go over the hand placement for this. Our universal sign for choking is somebody putting their hands around their neck and they're, look like they're choking. So if we see someone choking, if they are still making any kind of noise, they are breathing. So that's another thing that we would have to adapt. If you're deaf and you can't hear noise, we're going to have to come up with another way to tell, really. But I would ask people, are you choking? And they'll often, shake their head. And then if you can tell usually by their color, maybe of their face, like, are they really having trouble or are they just coughing a little bit? So once they get to the point where they just are not looking good at all, like, we do encourage them to just try to cough and get it out. But if it goes longer, that's when we're going to intervene and do the abdominal thrusts. And this quick little video will show you the abdominal thrusts.
Let the choking victim know you're going to help them. Wrap your arms around the victim and make a fist with one hand and place it above the navel in the middle of the belly. Hold a fist with your other hand and press forcefully into the person's abdomen and up toward the chest. Continue performing abdominal thrusts until the obstruction is removed or the victim becomes unconscious. If the victim becomes unconscious, lower them to the ground and begin CPR.
Okay, and if they do collapse, we have our arms around them, they could be sitting in a chair in a restaurant. You can just put their arms around them, or if they are standing up, sometimes people stand up when they start choking. They'll collapse. You already have your arms under their armpits, so you're kind of holding them. Even if they're twice as big as you, we try to just help them to the ground. And that just means even if they fall, we're trying to just make sure their head doesn't hit the ground so that they also don't have a head injury on top of choking. But someone bigger than me, if I'm doing that and they collapse, they're going to fall, and I'll just try to, because I'm holding the upper part, I'm just going to try to make sure the head doesn't hit something. And then we immediately start CPR with chest compressions. You're skipping all of those beginning steps because you've already done them. You've already checked the scene. You've already figured out what the problem was. And if you haven't already had somebody call 911, then, add that in there. But otherwise, you'll just keep going. So here is the overview of everything. I'm not going to read it all again to you. And we are going to, I will show you our website. This is a free code that you can use on our website if you're interested. Here we go. It is savealife.com. You can Google that. If you just say Save a Life, you get all the songs titled Save a Life. So you have to Google savealife.com. And it's sponsored by NHCPS. That's it'll redirect to there. That's our National Healthcare Provider Solutions that hosts our website. So the directions are here. You can sign in just with an email address, use this free code. You can take the whole CPR course, which will go through the differences between adults, children, and infants, if you have to do CPR in different ages, and also all of the first aid. And we haven't talked about first aid at all. And then at the end, you take a test. You need to get an 80% to pass, but you can log out, You can finish it later. You can look things up. We want you to learn the material so that you can pass. And then when you're done and you pass the exam, you would be CPR certified, and you can instantly download a card or certificate that has your name and says you are CPR certified, and that is good for 2 years. So all you do is, where is our CPR? We kind of changed it. There we go. So you'll see the other courses on there are for healthcare providers. You have to have a medical license for those, but you can hit CPR. The code works on just the first one, not the CPR for life. So once you put that in your cart, okay, I don't know what's happening. Let's try it again. Anyway, checkout, maybe hit checkout. No, okay, it doesn't want to work. The code is DF, which stands for Disc Foundation, CPR Web 100. And I'm also going to just email the directions with the code to your host, and they can post or send it out to all of you also. But if you go to this website and put the code in your shopping cart where it just says, do you have a coupon code? It will go from $59 to $0. There's no charge. The last thing to show you on here is where it says free resources. It's all our courses. There's practice, tests, mega codes, algorithms, just lots of different ways to look at the material. And this mobile app is free. It's called MediCode. It's on your app store. It has all the courses, and it has all of the steps on there. So you can follow along in an emergency. You can also look something up, like if there's a nosebleed and you don't know what to do, you can look it up and it'll give you the directions. And then we also have books you can download, and these are 50-page color books, so you could print it out or keep it on your computer if you want to look at the material that way. It's all pictures and text. So I am finished, and I can answer any questions that you have. And like I said, I will email that final information with the website and the code to your host so that you all can get that. Are there any questions? Yes, the code. You know what? I will type it in the chat. She probably already got it, but let's see. We'll say code is DFCPR Web 100. And the website is, it's nhcps.com, but you can Google savealife.com, savealife.com. Either one of those will get you there. Are there any questions? You guys can type a question or raise your hand. Dee Dee?
if a deaf person can't call 911? What would they do?
Yeah, that's what I mentioned. Amanda. Hold on, Amanda. Let me get her. Let me change the oh, how do I change my back? Yeah, there we go. Can you come here? Hi, this is my daughter Amanda again. The question was 911 when you're deaf. What did you guys learn in school as far as emergencies? I was wondering if they had the 911 like a texting or a virtual relay.
I live in Maryland, so
They have texting to 911 where I live.
but it's not everywhere.
Do you know where it is in the United States?
I
Did they
said
tell you?
Frederick County because there's a big deaf population there.
Did you learn where it was in the US? We'll just Google it. Or, no.
But it's in Frederick County. You can text. Most deaf people have VR, just an interpreter, but it's hard. Like if someone broke into your house or something, you can't go to your VR.
Oh, because it's in
computer.
another room.
Because
Okay.
my friend has a VR computer and it's in their kitchen. So if they were upstairs or something and someone broke into your house, you can't. I'm not sure. I have a little bit of hearing in my right ear. So when I call 911, I just speak.
Yeah, she's had to call me.
I've had to call 911. I just speak. But I don't know. I'll have to ask because I don't know many deaf people who've had to call 911. And if they do, it's not like they always have access to a VR or BRS. Yeah, that. So they always have an interpreting service or someone's hearing because like I went to Maryland School for the Deaf. So like at sports, competitions, basketball games, things like that, they always had someone who could speak, like the referee or something if someone broke something. Or one time there was gunshots close to the school, but they had hearing people there that called. But they always have an interpreting for. But it's free. Man, I know that.
Yeah, and I would say if you guys are in Memphis, that's definitely something you need to check, and we can Google and check. And I also, if I move, there's a form we have on our firefighter webpage for our county, and I always sign up that my daughter is deaf and which bedroom she's in. And so then they know if there's a fire or an emergency here that, you know, because she might be sleeping and she can sleep through fire alarms. She doesn't always hear them. And the other question was at school, did you have AED that was special? Do you know anything about that? Because I know you had the flashing and the speaking fire alarm.
All of our infirmary people were hearing. So I know that AEDs, they speak to you.
Because
I feel like some of them have a screen that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it, but
like the new ones have a screen, but if it's old, it might only speak. I'm not sure because I don't know. We've never had that emergency, but there's always our infirmary people there were hearing, so it didn't sound that well either. They were awful.
Okay, hold on, the question.
Memphis have a 911 text number.
Okay.
So in the text name, you can 911 and text the place address or whatever, all the information. Nashville, not yet, but maybe will.
In
I just
one county.
Oh,
County,
it's
the
only-
deaf, where
yeah.
the most deaf people are is
In the
in
school.
Frederick County. So that school, my school, it's only in that county they have that.
Mhm.
We live in a different county, like an hour away from the school. So I'm not sure if they have it here, but they do have it in Frederick County.
Mhm.
So in Memphis have, yes. Nashville, not yet, but will have.
I'd like to add to Dee Dee's comment. I've called 911 once several years ago, but there was a crash. And anyway, during the conversation, they saw that there was a driver had hit, kind of scraped along the wall, and no one was able to help. And so they pulled over, and they were making sure that I was making sure that the person, there was a mom and a grandmother and a boy in the back seat, who happened to be deaf. It just happened one time, and just went to see if they needed help and if they were hurt. And so I was able to call 911 through Sorensen via video relay. And it's the same way as typical, you could just call 911 through Sorensen and it's automatic and you'll get connected. It doesn't have the long wait time. Just wanted to let you know that DDD just kind of explain more about who, I was able to explain who was in the car, what was going on, if an ambulance service was needed, and that kind of thing. So I was able, they were able to arrive, and then I went on my way. And so I was able to call 911 through Sorensen. It was absolutely no problem, but you can text them as well, and you can call through Sorensen too.
What's Sorensen?
Thank you for that, says Dee Dee.
You
What's that?
remember they sponsor clerk. I swear we have like a cup or something. It's that S, it's that yellow S.
Oh.
It's an interpreting service. But they
Was that on
they
their phone?
um
Oh.
yeah.
Was that she called on her phone?
Yes, I have a Sorensen app on my phone, and I can make calls through my cell phone to Sorensen. I have that on my phone as well, says Dee Dee. See,
Okay.
Here it is. I can use that, and I can make calls through Sorensen on my cell phone. Yep.
So you can call 911 on there when you're out on the road at an accident. Okay, well, that's a good.
Oh yeah, you can absolutely do that. Well, you need to pull over so that you can, you shouldn't be doing that when you're driving, but you should, you can pull over and sign to and then let the interpreter know, and she'll be relaying that to the emergency services on 911. You can do it with text as well. So it's not, we haven't got text in Nashville here yet, but yeah.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yeah, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Okay, say for example, and by me being what's the word? Heavyweight, sometimes I don't know my strength, and I'm doing CPR on a light frame person, and say that I break a couple of ribs in the process of doing the CPR. So will I be sued or become liable for that once that person goes to the doctor and find out that I did CPR and I broke a couple of ribs?
No, not at all. We have that Good Samaritan Act, which I mentioned in the beginning, and that's covers United States, and you can Google that too. And it's just this whole paragraph about as long as you are trying to help in good faith someone in an emergency, whether you're doing something that you learned in a webinar, or you are CPR certified, or you could be following what the 911 operator says to you. It doesn't matter, even if they die, you can't be held liable for that. You're protected. You know, they can definitely, if someone dies in a car accident and there's a wrongful death lawsuit, which happens all the time, they will list every person that was even standing there watching. If they can get your name, they're going to list it. That's the way America is. But you wouldn't, it would kind of stop right there. You know, you might have to be a witness and explain what happened or explain what you did. But the only time that you're not protected is if you are doing something that is out of your level of ability. So if you're a regular person that does not have a medical license and you're like, oh, I saw this on Grey's Anatomy, and you try to stick a pen through somebody's throat to help them breathe, you know, that we can't do surgery that we saw on TV, but that never works anyway. So if you're doing anything you learned in this webinar, or again, like I said, if you take the course and you're CPR certified, as long as you're doing first aid or CPR, you're covered. And then myself, we have different laws that cover medical personnel. So if I'm at an accident, I'm allowed to work to my level of being a nurse. So there's other things I'm allowed to do, but I can't be a doctor. You know, I can't do surgery or whatever. So you just have to work to the level that you are qualified.
Thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions today? Okay, we will end up, and I will email those couple things that I mentioned, and you can definitely email me if you have any other questions in the future, or if you want to do this again or cover any other topics. I'm happy to help.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you very much for our interpreter and our caption writer. And I appreciate meeting with you all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.